Hi everyone, I'm going to be working on just some sky and clouds. I think clouds are one of the things that people struggle with a lot, particularly in acrylics, because they dry so quickly, which can be a good thing, but it can also be very frustrating. So I'm just going to be chatting away whilst I'm working, and you can kind of see what I do as I do it. So one of the things I do a lot inside my communities is show the process of things, but I like to also show the different ways of doing things, because you know, we all work differently and we all have different ways of doing things, and you have to find what works for you. This is the thing, like, you have to enjoy the process. If you don't enjoy the process, then there's just no point. Like, even if you're happy with the end result, if you're not enjoying the process, then it's just not fun. And painting has to be about having fun as well. So this is just Hans Yellows and Crimson. This isn't a tutorial, but I just wanted to kind of jump on and sort of chat and work as I'm doing it. So one of the things I do like to do though is put a ground colour down, and that's largely because depending on the actual scene. So in my Vibrant Visions program, I do sort of talk about this a lot and kind of show why I do these certain things, but really it's like if you're doing a landscape and there's lots of greenery, then it's nice to have a warm ground colour, or in this case it's going to be like more of a sunset scene, so I want that really kind of lovely bright yellow underneath. So I'm just going to kind of map out where things are. Yeah, clouds can be a bit daunting, I think. I mean, I've always loved painting clouds. I did a lot of travelling when I was younger, in my young years, and I just took hundreds and hundreds of pictures of sunsets, and I remember, I'll show you here, being in Thailand and having like 300 pictures printed of just sunsets, because they had the most incredible sunsets. So I've kind of got a loose image, but I'm really only using it as a guide, to be honest, because I don't like to be a slave to the image. I kind of like to do my own thing. I'm just sort of blocking things in. Yeah, so I think when it comes to learning, and this is, you know, I like to kind of show different processes of doing things, because we, like I say, we all learn very differently. We all like to do things very differently, and there is no one size fits all with painting. There's no one approach that's the ideal approach, and it's really finding what works for you. And if you can do that, then that's brilliant, because, you know, I think often you can spend a lot of your painting time struggling and feeling frustrated. So it's important to learn these different ways of doing things, these different processes, and finding the one that works for you. There is, like I say, there's no one size fits all. And the one thing I don't ever do in my teaching is make you a clone of me. It's one of the worst things I think that you can do, really, because if I just show you stroke for stroke what I'm doing and in my teaching, and I don't, you know, really explain why I'm doing what I'm doing, then you'll never really be able to go away and do your own pieces. And I just share this with you because I think sometimes we can get caught into the let's just like copy and not really understand the process. And, you know, copying is important in the learning process. It really is. But you also have to learn the foundations behind what you're doing. And I'm not sharing this with you to try and sell to you because I'm not. But I think we can get easily caught in the loop of just kind of thinking that if I just copy, that it will all work out. So I'm just sort of slapping the colour on. The first thing I like to do when I paint is get rid of the white, because the white is so glaring and it's, you know, it's a bit daunting. So if we can just get rid of it as soon as possible, it makes things so much easier. And then it also helps us to judge our colours better as well, because we've got something to work from. Obviously when we put colour down, it can look quite different on a white surface. So, and colour, it's all relative. So all the colours will be affected by each other. So again, that's why it's really important to kind of map those out to begin with. And it really is just very, very crude to start with, you know, just blocking in. I mean, you're probably looking at this thinking, what is she doing? Where is this going? But there is a method to my madness, and we do get there. But we just get there at a nice pace. I like it when when you're working on a still kind of a wet surface, as long as it's not too wet and isn't sticky, then the paint just glides. So I'm just going to keep mapping out some of these colours in the sky. It's all about layering with acrylics, with oils, with a lot of medium really. It's just that lovely layering process. I also like to leave little gaps coming through as well. Just adds unity to the painting. Grab my cadmium red, pyrrole red. So I'm just blocking things in really. You really don't have to overthink this part, just get it down. I think when you really start to learn to paint and understand the whys behind the things that you're doing, it's easier to make decisions about things, because ultimately in the end you do it intuitively, and that does come with time, but to begin with you sort of need to know why you're doing what you're doing, and it's okay to get there intuitively, but it's also important to know why behind it, because it helps you to kind of see where you're going, or if things aren't working out, how to fix them. And so that part of the process is important. And also how to work from images and all that sort of thing. It's one of the things I do like showing, is that process behind, okay, I've picked this image and I've done it and I'm going to change it like this. And that's something I do a lot inside the communities. I love layering colour, so therapeutic, I think. Do you ever find yourself just really getting lost in your painting? And I don't mean lost as in you don't know where you're going, but you just, something relaxes you, I think. And don't get me wrong, it's not always relaxing. It can be a bit stressful at times. But I think when we're in our zone and we're switching off from the outside world and all the things, you're not thinking about what you've got to do when you get in. It's just your time to create and relax. And it's easy to say, I don't have time. I don't have time to do this. I don't have, we all have the same hours in the day, and we have to make time for the things that we love. We have to give ourselves that time to breathe and to just be. I'm honestly a much better mum when I've had the space to paint and to switch off and just do what I enjoy. And I'm one of those people that I feel guilty about everything, like everything. I go to the gym on a Saturday and I feel guilty about it, even though I drop my daughter off at ballet. My other daughter's at football training with her dad because he's a coach now, and I have that bit of time for me, even though they're doing their things. I have this guilt, and it's crazy because I have to do things that light me up. We all have to do things that light us up, because it's our moment to just switch off and relax and not think about all the things. And what I do now is I set days aside. Like Tuesday is always about painting for me. I try and paint a bit more on a Friday and sometimes on a Wednesday, and it's just finding that time for yourself and not feeling guilty about it. So I'm going to bring in some blue now. Still working with the same brush, just a number 10 Dali Rauner brush. So I'm just going to bring in some of this lovely blue, a bit of alizarin crimson. Now the reason I'm bringing the blue in, even though I've not finished the clouds, is because you have to balance things the same, because like I say, colours look different when they're next to a different colour. And if I continue finishing the clouds, I'll put the sky in, and then all of a sudden it's going to look very different. So just lightening that up a bit more. It's amazing when you look at an image, like really look at an image, how different it can look once you start working. Just bringing in a bit of yellow. Yeah, so if you're anything like me, I am getting better at not feeling as guilty, because I know that if I have that time, it relaxes you and you just become better. Like you can just switch off and breathe and just have that time. We're so busy these days, like the world is we're just rushing around all the time. We don't slow down. So I'm always stepping back, always kind of looking. So I'm just, as I've got that colour on my brush, I'm just going to kind of dart it around the edges of those clouds just to start to build up those highlights. And I'm always changing the angle of my brush as well. I mean, it's quite green, but that's fine because I'm going to change a lot of it anyway. So what do you make time for yourself? Do you feel guilty about making time for yourself? Let me know in the comments, I'd be really interested. I'm just going to grab another palette, my one's getting very messy. I think as well, we live in such a fast-paced world of having things straight away that we almost become impatient to wanting to put the time in sometimes, I think. We want things to happen quicker. And it's easy to look at other people and think, well, it's just natural talent, but actually it's time. They've taken time to do it. And that's what we've got to do more of, make time. if you could ask yourself the question, what do I want to learn? What do I want to get better at? What needs to happen for me to get better at it? What needs to happen for me to give myself the time? What do I have to sacrifice? Or maybe I don't need to sacrifice anything. You know, we go through that ugly stage of painting and it feels like, ugh, what is happening here? But you know, when you've been painting a long time, you sort of know that's part of the process and that's okay. But to begin with, you think, why is this not looking like it should much quicker? So it's just building up those lovely layers. And that's really what painting is. It's just building up and being patient to kind of hold back. So you see how I'm always working around the painting as I'm doing it. You know, I don't just complete one area. I'm constantly bouncing around. Not literally. Well, sometimes I do. And you know, you cover things up, add things in, take things away. But I am always stepping back. So as I say, this wasn't intended to be a tutorial. This is just me kind of just chatting as I paint. The other thing I think is really important, again, is to kind of work on things one at a time. You know, don't feel like you have to try and tackle all the things. You know, if you're struggling with colour mixing, just focus on colour mixing for a while. Don't feel like you have to have these finished paintings all the time. Just give yourself the time to just sit and play. It can't always be about the finished piece. It has to be so much more than that if you want to really develop. There's nothing more relaxing than just painting. It was funny, inside our brush flow community, we did a creative play session the other day, and it was just so nice to see people taking on the challenge of getting out of their comfort zone, because we can easily get stuck in our comfort zones, and sometimes you have to try something completely different. And everyone, what they created was so different. It was really interesting to see the interpretations of what it was I gave them to do. So as you start to build up the layers, you'll get to that stage where in the middle where it just feels like a bit of a mess. And I think we're at that stage. But if you know that that's part of the process, it almost becomes easier to digest, because you just accept that's just part of it. And you don't let it worry you. Whereas, I used to think, why is it looking such a mess? Something's not right. But actually, every painting has to go through that stage. I think when you've been painting a long time, you know these things more, and you're more forgiving to yourself. Whereas I think when you're in the early stages, you don't know that that's what it is, and so you think that it's you, and that's not the case. And that's the thing, knowledge is so key than trying to just figure it out on your own sometimes. What do you find is your biggest frustration with painting? Is it the colour mixing, or is it the knowing what to paint, or, there's just so many things to think about. I think one of the things that when I learnt to just let myself go a bit and be a bit more forgiving to myself, I was more open to experimenting and trying things that maybe I wouldn't have done before. You know, let go of the perfectionism and just let the brush dance around a bit and do its thing. Because, you know, if it doesn't work out, you can go over the top of it and no one will ever know. You know, and when they've analysed master paintings, they've uncovered arms that have been moved or things that have been changed, you know, because painting is kind of a series of figuring things out as you work. You know, it's not, I'm going to lay every stroke down and every stroke's going to be perfect. No, that's not how it works. It'd be nice, but it's not how it works. Painting is a series of challenges. It's a series of solving things. And it's really our job as an artist to kind of get to the bottom of what we're trying to achieve and how we can do that. But not every stroke is going to go down the way you want it to. And that's absolutely fine. It took me a long time to figure that out, I have to say. So I'm hoping by watching this, you'll be kinder to yourself. So I'm constantly changing the angle of my brush so that it doesn't become the same. Otherwise it becomes too monotonous. And it's not believable. You know, we're in a hurry to get to those highlights, but that's why we have to just gradually build it up so that when we do put them on, they just sing. And it is exciting when we get to those highlights. You know, it starts to feel like it's coming alive. By holding back, we are moving to those bits slowly, and those under colours are really going to support what's happening above. And if we get to, if we get to those highlights too early on, then the painting can fall down because it hasn't got that structure underneath. So we're just gradually lifting. And sometimes it can feel like it's taking a long time to get there. But you know what, that's fine. So I'm just giving that lovely glaze over those back mountains where the sun is really hitting it. And then having that little bit of contrast there just brings it all out a bit more. So again, just kind of changing the direction of your brush. And then we can just go on and tweak up here a bit more. So you're just constantly moving around. So there's still quite a bit to do, but I just wanted to really just give you the idea of where it's going and sort of how I got there, but really just to kind of talk to you a bit and just share some insights on some of the things that we've talked about. That lovely bright, just that lovely sunny feel. Okay, so I think I'll probably leave it there. It's by no means finished, but I just didn't want this. This was never intended to be a tutorial. This is just me painting and kind of chatting, and I got so engrossed in what I was doing, I think I just continued on. So yeah, so what can we take away from this really? Just make time for yourself, not feel guilty about it. I'm still working on that. But we do have to prioritize ourselves at times. You know, you get one life. We have to really make the most of it. And I'm a great believer in that, that's for sure. And I know it's not always that simple. You know, there's work and other things and commitments. But even just 10 minutes, I think we can all find 10 minutes to just sit and play. And it honestly makes the biggest difference. Right, I'm going to stop there because, you know, there's still stuff to do, but hopefully you found that interesting. Let me know in the comments if you've got any thoughts on some of the things we've talked about. And yeah, that was just to kind of give you the thought behind sort of starting with clouds and building those layers up. And yeah, I wish you a lovely day, and I will see you very soon. So happy painting, everyone.